Hi everyone, welcome to Shelf Control. I'm Norm, and today I'm going to do a short little video talking about my preparation for trying the Slapchop technique on our copy of Zombicide Undead or Alive. If you've seen our past videos, we've talked about this before in our review. If you've missed that, please check it out. I got this copy used at a great price, and it came with some pieces that were already painted, and I wasn't real keen on how they were painted. It was in a state of incompleteness. Not every piece was painted, not every piece was painted fully, and the biggest concern I had was they weren't colored like the pictures of the people on the box, where Trixie on her player card has a nice green dress and some strawberry blonde hair or red hair, and our mini had a purple dress and dark black hair, and all the figures that were painted were kind of like that, where you had to look at the colored base that you put on them to make sure, okay, this is my person, instead of looking for the figure that looked like the person on the card. And so since it was in a state of incompleteness, and if it was either going to have to be all stripped down to nothing or all painted, I was like, ¿por qué no los dos? Why don't we strip it down and then repaint it? And so looking online for ways of stripping paint, people were mentioning this LA's Totally Awesome all-purpose concentrated cleaner, degreaser, spot remover, and you can get this at the Dollar Tree for $1.25 a bottle, and I figured for that price, you can't beat it. I do think it's kind of interesting that the first thing that it says that it removes is a blood stain.
Blood?
But $1.25, if you have a lot of blood you need to get rid of, this is a good choice.
Who are you talking to?
And so I just let the figures just sit in this, and it didn't take long for the paint on the primer to come off. The primer, on the other hand, didn't come off easy. If I scrubbed a little bit, it would come off a little bit, but it wasn't great. I swapped away from using this and got a bottle of the 90% isopropyl alcohol and soaked them in that for a while, and the white primer came off pretty good. There's a little bit of whiteness just dusting on the figures that I took the primer off, and I don't know if that's staining from the primer or if that's related to a reaction in the plastic. On the figures, it seemed to happen more to the base than to the figures themselves. So I don't know if the base is made of a different kind of plastic that may be colored from the soaking the isopropyl. But combination of LA's Totally Awesome to remove the colorful paint, and the isopropyl to take off the primer, and it did a pretty good job. Then I was doing some research on the Slapchop technique, and because that looked like a quick and simple way for people like me who haven't painted in years. And back when I did paint, it was just when we were playing D&D, I would roughly paint a figure in the colors, and it was nowhere near the level that I would be happy with today. So we're going to try the Slapchop technique using the Army Painter Speed Paints 2.0. My boys knew that this was what I was thinking of doing, and I mentioned the speed paint, and so they had bought me the starter set 2.0 to play around with. And something interesting, I don't know if it's relevant to that much, but when I got it, the green that came with it was this forest sprite color. And the box says orc skin as the color. And so I sent an email to their support asking if orc skin has been renamed Forest Sprite, or if it was a replacement for the for the set. And they said no, that was not what was supposed to be in there. And so they sent me a thing of orc skin. So I've got orc skin and Forest Sprite with my 2.0 set. So I got plenty of greens I can play around with. So we'll see how that works. If you're not familiar with the Slapchop method, what you do is you'll take your figure that you want to paint and you'll prime it in black. And doing a little bit of research, I ended up buying this what's it called? Style Res? It's made for the Badger Airbrush Company. So it's an airbrush paint, but people were saying that this is a good primer for minifigs, especially ones that may not have the best quality of molding, because this is thinner and gets down into the cracks, doesn't fill up the cracks, and so it'll bring up the details on these figures a little bit more, hopefully. I got this to try. I'll let you know as we go through this this speed paint series that I'm doing how well this works. So then after you prime everything in black, you'll work your way up to a lighter color. And so you'll go over and dry brush heavily with a gray. And I went with a neutral gray color in this Basics acrylic line that's fairly cheap. You get a big bottle of it. And then you go over that gray with a bright white. And so I got the same Basics acrylic in a titanium white. And so you'll go lightly over the gray with the white to bring out the highlights even more. And so then you'll have the dark base with the light gray blending into the bright white. And so then you've got basically a black and white shaded figure that you then use the speed paints to then go over, and it just tints the highlights that you've done and brings out the color. In the directions for how to use the speed paint tell you to prime in white and then go over with just the speed paint, and then the speed paint sinks into the recesses for that shadow. So I've read that since we're doing black, gray, and up to white, your figure's already a little bit darker, and so you may want to lighten the shade of the speed paint because your darks are already dark. So when you put the darker speed paint on, it makes it really dark. And so we'll play around with that to see how the tints work, whether we need to lighten them up, and what works the best for that. For the dry brushing, people were saying makeup brushes work the best. Lisa had a bunch of these brushes. They have the rounded top in different sizes. They have the softer hair that you would use for the dry brushing. And they say to try to use the biggest brush you can get away with for the dry brushing. So we'll try those out. She had a set here of all kinds of different sizes that she's already got brushes for, and so we'll be playing around with those. And digging through my old stuff, I have some old, what are these? These are Sterling Studio and Tester brushes of different sizes, some of them getting quite fine to a point. A couple of these haven't even been used, but these were what I was using years ago when I was just slapping paint on some figures. And so we'll see how well those work for putting the speed paints on. A couple other things that I picked up, these pop fidget things. People said that these were really good to use as little places to drip your paint in, and then these are real easy to clean because when it dries you just pop them and the paint comes loose because it's silicone, it doesn't stick. And I picked up this one not so much because it's Boba Fett, but because it's a gray color. A lot of the ones that you find out in places are the rainbow colors, and I was afraid that you put a green into a little basin that's colored yellow, and you won't know exactly what tint of green you're working with. And so this is more of a neutral color. It might make the paint look a little bit darker, but at least it's not giving it a different tint. And so we'll see how well that works. A couple things I got. I happen to have laying around this small little paint roller thing that has some raised bumps and some stuff there. I splashed some black primer in there because they suggest that when you're doing your dry brushing, you'll put a little bit of paint on your brush that you're doing your dry brushing with, and then you'll go on a rough palette to try to get the paint off and see how much paint you're actually putting off. Because when you're doing the dry brushing, it's not like painting. You're just kind of slowly going over it and just applying just the tiniest amount of paint every time you go over it. And so you want to have a palette that you can use to get that excess paint off, as well as seeing. I painted this black so I could actually have a good contrast to see how the grays and the whites are looking. And so we'll see how well that works. I'd also picked up, I found at the used bookstore, they sell some Lego bits. I think this is a Mega Blocks piece, and it's just a rough, it's got some of the Lego bumps on it and some other texture on it. And so I found this after I'd already done this, and so I thought I might do some black primer on this as well and give it a try, because it's got the different textures, big textures and these little textures down in between them. And so we'll be giving that a try as well. For the finished product, people were suggesting this AK varnish, matte varnish. And so you go over the figure when you're done with this, and it takes any shine off of it, and also protects the paint. And so we'll see how well that works. It comes with two nozzles. One that they say, I don't know if it says on here, a standard diffuser and a fine diffuser. I don't know what the difference is between the two. Looking online, Googling the AK varnish standard and fine diffuser, I couldn't find anyone saying what the difference was between the two and which one would be better. If any of you guys know and have any experience with this, if you could let me know which diffuser I should be using, that'd be great. There's plenty of time before I get to this stage, because I'm going to be painting figures. One thing I thought about with doing these Zombicide figures is that you've got the different kinds of figures. You got walkers, which are gray, runners, which are darker gray, your abominations, which are red. And when I get to the long dead walkers and start doing those are kind of a bone color. And so that's how, when you're playing the game, you differentiate the different types. If the walkers activate, you know that it's the lighter grays that work. If the runners activate, then it's the darker grays activate. And if it's the long dead walkers, it's the bone color. Well, if I prime all these black and then paint colors over them, you won't know which ones are walkers other than just the way they look. You'd have to get used to the look of them, and I kind of want to help this game be new person friendly if I introduce people to it. So I've got this old beat up thing of painter's tape that I thought I would try putting just around the edge of each base before I primed them. So when I finish painting, I can peel that off and the edge around the base will stay the color that the figure is. Plus, I figured I'd try and stay a little bit uniform with each type. Maybe not go crazy with a wild rainbow of colors on the walkers and then use the same rainbow of colors for the runners. Maybe have the walkers be a couple different colors and then the walkers be different from that as well. If need be, I can always get some paint that's a little bit thicker, not the speed paint that's thin, but then paint around the edge to show this one's red and tan and light. And so that's my preparation for doing this speed paint. I don't know if you guys have any opinions of this stuff. The basics acrylic. People online were saying, you don't have to get fancy with these paints because you're going to be using a lot of it and just covering it up anyways. So, but this primer, I'm hoping it works. It works good. It's made for airbrushes, but a couple people online were saying that it works great with brushes as well, and it doesn't clog up the details on the Mini. So we'll give that a try. And again, I'm assuming use the fine diffuser, but if you guys know any better, please let me know, because I am a total noob at this painting thing. So anyways, have you guys painted your Zombicide or any of your other figures? If this goes really well, I've got other games that I would love to splash some color on, but I've always been afraid to. But Zombicide seems like a good one, since it was partially done and the stripping the paint has kind of left a residue on some of them. I figured it's a great one to start with, and I'll have plenty of pieces to get the practice going. So anyways, that's it from me. The next few videos, I'll scatter in some of painting as I go. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.